Welcome on, bienvenue, welcome to the United Nations IRL. We're your hosts, Mark and Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Always like to dip back into Stephen King, as we're doing for this recording, and we are covering Firestarter. We were kind of throwing around ideas, wasn't we, about what we was going to do next, and I suggested, how about a bit of Stephen King, and we had a few...
Yeah.
Back and forth. We talked about Christine and things like that, and we settled on Firestarter. Firestarter, funny enough, was... Do you remember in my 2022 review, there was a remake of Firestarter that was quite dreadful.
Indeed. Yeah, Blumhouse too, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, Zac Efron, who's usually pretty good in stuff. Well, it was nothing to do with him. How bad it was just badly made. It just had no tension on, just wasn't put together that well. But this version is from 1984. But I mean, he wrote the book in 1980, so it's pretty quickly afterwards. This must have been the height of, with Carrie and The Shining. There was a crest of Stephen King movies and several others. There's some really high quality ones early on, Carrie and The Shining and The Dead Zone. But even the middle tier King was kind of a lot of fun. Salem's Lot was probably top tier, and the TV adaptation.
I love it.
Even the middle tier King is usually kind of fun. And this was from 84. And we have as the main character, Charlie, Drew Barrymore, straight off of E.T., or from a few years before E.T. So it kind of worked.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, apparently the film was intended to be directed by John Carpenter, who had some different scripting ideas. But I think when The Thing flopped, they didn't want to use Carpenter. Believe it, which seems odd, doesn't it?
It really does, because in our modern day, The Thing is considered such a beloved classic. But at the time, it was like, ooh, no, this did not do well. But I think The Thing really found its popularity, on television here in the States. And I'm sure probably...
video.
Oh, yeah.
Video,
video.
Anyone who saw The Thing, who knew anything about horror, always thought it was a great film. It was never considered by the horror community as a bad film. It just didn't do well. I think BT had come out a little before, and everyone wanted fluffy aliens. And The Thing is not a fluffy alien. That's for sure. And there was other friendly alien, Close Encounters and bits and bobs like that. There's bits and bobs like that. This one had some quite good names attached. David Keith. I always like David Keith. I don't see him in much, but I think he's pretty good. I remember as a boy or a sort of teenager going to see Brubaker at the cinema and being really struck by how good this guy was, and it was David Keith, right? And Everett McGill was in it too. And interesting. It's an okay prison drama. Yaphet Kotto's in it, but it was ever since then. I have always liked David Keith, even though you don't see him in too much.
You really don't. Yeah. No. Every time I see him, though, he's very talented. He's very good. I know. I don't know if they specifically kind of criticize him in some of the reviews, but I know Siskel and Ebert in particular, they didn't have many kind things to say about this film. And I want to say it's not really because of the actors, There's
a bit of bad acting in it, but I didn't think it was notably bad. I mean, Drew Barrymore is not a great actress at this age.
She's so young.
That was okay. I didn't mind that because it's a horror film, right? It's kind of focused around her. As I say, there was a remake. We've both read the book, right? So we can sort of talk about the book a bit. But apparently there was a follow-up miniseries, which I did not know about, called Firestarter Rekindled, which I believe is based on Charlie Grown Up. So that's kind of interesting. But
I believe it was a sci-fi original, right? So that makes me a little fearful, because we know how sci-fi originals are. But I would watch it nonetheless.
I'll tell you what. One thing that really struck me about the film is how much of it was kind of the wellspring of inspiration for Stranger Things. Honestly,
yes.
Of all of the Stephen King properties, this is probably the most central, I would say. And maybe a bit of The Mist and stuff like that. But honestly, mysterious experiments going on, a young girl sort of isolated as a product that, like 11 was, the shop. Do they even call it the shop
They do call it the shop.
Things? Well, there you go.
I'm pretty sure they do. Unless I'm totally I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize to our audience. But
terrible scientists involved, things like that. Yeah.
Yes, right out of the 80s. And this film has just huge 80s vibes, as you would expect. But I mean, even the kind of electronica music, going on, and all that wonderful stuff you get from the 80s is right here at the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I quite like the music. I quite like the setup, the whole college students being paid money to take hallucinogenics, and it turns out it's not just hallucinogenics, it's something way more powerful. So they suddenly develop these powers, or some of them do, but some of them go crazy, and we see one go crazy and rip their own eyes out, it looks like. Which is from brutal. The book. That is from the book. That's what happened in the book. And basically two of them who get through this particular experiment and then become a couple, their offspring, Charlie, then has it like superpowered powers, she's up there with like X-Men powers, really.
That's kind of what I got too, like the whole X-Men vibe. And of course I'm actually, as we speak, watching X-Men 97, so I was thinking, well, I wonder if maybe that's kind of influenced my take here, but I'm glad you kind of mentioned X-Men.
You could kind of see Professor X turning up at some point, maybe, it wouldn't be out of place. Now it's a bit of flashbacking stuff. We see basically a father and a daughter on the run, don't we? But he uses his powers to sort of help them escape. Like we see Antonio Fargas briefly in a bit part, Huggy Bear, as a taxi driver. Yeah. This was before he was famous as well. At this point, he was known. But basically gives him $1 and uses his mind push to make it look like $500 to get them to the airport.
I love it. He's like, I'm not turning down $500.
And essentially the father, just like the book, whenever he uses his power, it's damaging himself, right? It's damaging. And they even have in some dialogue, they have, it might cause micro strokes or micro damage to his brain each time he does it, because he keeps getting a nosebleed every time he does it, doesn't it? And we can see it's taking it out of him. Charlie doesn't seem to have that problem, in that it doesn't damage her when she uses her powers. They're just wild and really out of control. There was a cool bit where he's trying to teach her how to use a thing by holding up some bread and turning it into toast. That's kind of cool.
I like that scene.
Now, Stephen King didn't like this adaptation, just but he actually did like that scene, and he said he wished he'd have thought of it and put it in the book.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So that was one of the things he kind of liked about it. I also quite like, David Keith, Heather Locklear is her mother. She's not here very long, is she? Heather
Locklear? No. Very briefly. Maybe like 5. Well, maybe about 10 minutes total. Yeah,
well, we have one thing where Charlie gets angry at her mum. They have an argument, and her oven gloves, burst into flames, and they tell Charlie off, don't they, for not being able to control it. The dad's been trying to get her to help her get a feel for controlling it, and she says herself, Charlie, I don't think I can pull it back. I just have to direct it to something else to let it go. And that kind of happens in the book. We also have Martin Sheen as the main shitheel.
Yes, absolutely.
There's always one in an 80s film, isn't there?
Oh my God. He does it almost too well, doesn't he?
Yeah, and we also get George C. Scott as, I can't remember the character's name, but he's meant to be a Native American, isn't he? No, George C. Scott really doesn't look like an Native American.
No, not even a little bit.
No, but he has the long hair, which is fine, and he has a ponytail, which less so. Stop with the ponytails. No.
Yeah. I mean,
but I really like
Chelsea.
It's John, isn't it? Rainbird. Rainbird is his name.
Rainbird, yes.
Yeah. We also while they're on the run, they manage to get to a farmhouse, and they're picked up on. Well, they're basically given a lift by Art Carney, who is like a typical Stephen King character, salt of the earth kind of farmer guy, living out of town, and his wife Norma, played by Louise Fletcher. It's good to see Louise Fletcher, Oscar winner, I believe, from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's kind of, she's in this briefly. Art Carney looks really old in this. I don't think he was that old when he met. I think he was made up to look older than he was.
I was wondering about that because I was thinking actually, like, man, he has a huge difference from his age difference from his wife.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. But, I definitely got those kind of Pet Sematary vibes. He's the kindly old guy who's, well-meaning. And, you have him kind of the same character in several Stephen King books.
Yeah. We also do see, as you mentioned, Heather Locklear does kind of not last long. She gets murdered in a really weird way in that she's stuffed in a cupboard on an ironing board.
Yeah, this was kind of strange.
Yeah, it was a weird death, wasn't it? It was like, really? That's a really weird way to write this scene.
I couldn't remember if it was the same in the book or not. Do you know, Mark?
I suspect it was. That could be my own. That's the only reason I can think of them doing it this way, honestly, because it was so odd. But Andy kind of goes nuts when he finds... Because the guys are then trying to drag Charlie away, and he blinds them, doesn't he? You killed my wife. He blinds them. With his mental powers. So it's got a bit of a nod towards Scanners as well going on here, which was made earlier. So there's a touch of that. But because he blinds them, they get away. But then they're picked up by Art. He tells Art Carney almost immediately they're on the run from the government. And then the agents pull up and say, we need these people. And Art Carney's like, did I wake up in Russia this morning? This is my land. Unless you got a warrant, you get off. And they say, we don't need a warrant. There's all this to and fro-ing going on and all this. And they shoot Art Carney, don't they? But not fatally, just in the arm.
That scene is really well done at the kind of farmhouse, I thought. It's kind of a standoff. And, we're kind of having those debates here in the States now, like, hey, how much power should the government have? And it's still as relevant today as it was even back in the 80s. It's probably more so now, really.
Yeah.
But good stuff.
And I think this is the first time we see, like, the her hair getting, wavy, and she's obviously had hair dryers pushed in her face to make her hair kind of stand out as she's using her powers. Is this the first time we see that? I can't remember.
I think
that happens a
lot,
doesn't it? That does happen a lot.
Yeah. The wind. It's like the wind is blowing from just beyond or something.
Yeah.
But it works. I thought that worked really well anyway.
Yeah. So they're still on the run, but Andy's getting worse and worse, isn't he? And they get to a secluded cabin, and he's talking about going public with the story to sort of help protect them. But then they send, Raybird, it turns up with a, it looks like an air gun that shoots tranquilizer darts, right?
Yeah.
Shoots Charlie, and then Andy, and it's quite an effective scene here where all these guys in like radiation suits or fire retardant suits suddenly emerge from the woods, don't they, and start walking towards them. Quite a striking scene, I thought. Yeah. Quite cool.
I did find it funny that like one of the guys just did not have like his helmet on. Like he's just like I was thinking, well, maybe they didn't have a budget for him to have a helmet or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sure there was a reason, but we as the audience don't know.
So they basically capture Charlie and her dad Andy, take them to a secluded spot, and they keep them separated and keep Andy drugged. And they're constantly testing his powers to see if they think they've figured out a way to make his powers diminish. And he kind of acts like he's drugged, but we see that he's not taking the medication, is he? He's kind of getting rid of it as soon as he can.
Yeah.
And they're the kind of not aware of it. And Martin Sheen's really suckered into this. Martin Sheen's character is John Hollister. Meanwhile, a Rainbird is pretending to be Charlie's friend by pretending to be a janitor and sort of doing things to make her, like pretending to be scared of the dark and telling her stories about Vietnam and why he's scared of the dark, which brings them closer. And that is much... the book has much more time to develop things, and that is much better developed in the book. They had to, obviously, for a movie, you have to shortcut all the time, don't you? But it was done well enough. I quite like George C. Scott in this. He's kind of chuckles to himself a lot, and he kind of can see things way better than anyone else in the room. He seems like he's the smartest man in the room, quite a lot.
Oh yeah,
doesn't he?
Absolutely. But at the same time, he's a killer, he is.
Oh, he's a stone cold killer, and he's committed to the girl, the young girl. I mean, in the book, it's slightly better dealt with, but better explained. But basically, he's willing to kill her, knowing she will kill him. But that's how he wants to die, right? Someone with such power is like a, close to God to him. Right. And it's a very twisted thing, but it kind of works better in the book than in this film. The film was longer than I was expecting. For some reason, I thought it was like a 95-minute film, but it was close to 2 hours, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, it was pretty long.
A shock. So they get caught. Charlie does start making friends with Rainbird, but she also participates. And he kind of talks into, go along with the experiments. There might be a chance you'll see your dad again if you go along with it. And she starts going along with it, and they start doing experiments where she's like causing things burst into flames. At one point, she makes her bathtub of water burst into flames. It's no mean feat to make water burn. That's for sure. That didn't make me laugh because it was stupid, right?
like whoa, I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah, but it does go out, and then they start talking about, oh, did you see that water boil? I don't refer to the fact it was on fire at all. That was just a miss. That was a poor, that was a misjudged effect, in my opinion, that one.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, though, the effects are really, I thought anyway, really impressive in this.
Yeah. Especially in the finale. Whoa!
Oh my gosh, yeah, it goes off the rails.
And there's a bit where before they get caught, where Charlie's blowing up cars and things as well, isn't there?
The farmhouse.
Yeah, that was quite effective.
Yeah, all really well done. And she sets a bunch of the agents on fire too, which all that looks pretty darn great and
quite brutal. The
Yeah.
effects were really good, and the stunt work was really good on that. So Rainbird pretending to be John, making friends, he even takes her out horse riding and stuff like that. So then for some reason John Hollister's like, we've got a place in Hawaii if you want to go there, and it's like, yeah. But once they get out and there's just them two talking, because he hasn't taken the drugs, and he can use the old mind control on him, the Jedi mind trick, and sort of say, you're coming with me, and manages to find another agent to bring a note to Charlie, who, meet me here at 8 o'clock, we're going to get away from here. And she immediately tells Rainbird.
I was like,
Rainbird's her friend, right?
That's what she thinks, unfortunately.
But he sets up... I didn't quite understand what their plan was here. Was he just going to shoot everyone in the end, Rainbow? Because, they could have killed Charlie and her dad at any point. And that wasn't... I should have mentioned there was a professor, a doctor earlier on who was in charge of the initial experiments, played by Freddie Jones, British actor Freddie Jones.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It's quite good. Rainbow kills him by just a smash across the nose, doesn't he?
Yeah,
just
like a super judo chop.
And he does it while he's in bed, and he tickles his nose with a big feather just to wake him up, just so he can kill him while he's awake. That's a bit brutal. Thing
where he wants the person who he's killing to, see him right before he murders them. He's definitely a psycho for sure.
Oh yeah.
But the judo chop he does really brutal looking, and I gotta say it would make James Bond proud.
Yeah, and doesn't he say that's what he's going to use on the little girl as well?
He does. Yeah, he talks about the same thing.
Yeah, wow.
Because he's basically like what. I can't remember if he says like what are you getting out of this or whatever, and then after their conversation, the guy who's kind of running the place says you really are sick or something like that.
Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen's a little underused in this. He's okay. He's way better in another Stephen King adaptation, The Dead Zone. He's really good in that.
That's another one I need to see.
It's terrific. It's terrific. He plays a character called Greg Stilson, who does evoke somewhat the spirit of Donald Trump, to be honest.
Oh, maybe that's the next one we should do.
Yeah,
given the time.
It's kind of interesting. He's a man obsessed with being the president, and he's got his people around him who, are quite violent and stuff like that. So interesting. So it all kind of kicks off in a barn. Now, this barn thing was a bit goofy, really. It was a bit of a shootout. There was one brutal bit where Rainbow just shoots John Hollister in the forehead, right? It just shoots him in the forehead because Andy's forcing Hollister to fight for it. Him and Charlie. But old Rainbird's not taking it. But he once Charlie gets mad, he goes up. Yeah. It's fine. Which is a shame. It was quite a quick exit for quite an interesting character. But then it goes completely, it goes almost Carrie-esque ending, doesn't it? Because she goes nuts.
Oh, yeah. And that's a good comparison.
It's really quite exciting. There's fireballs flying about everywhere, blowing up stuff. How they did this, I do not know. Because it was super effective. Yeah.
The fireballs really caught me off guard. I was thinking, man, I wonder if this is the first use of like a fireball in live action American film. I'm not sure, but it looks really, really good.
Yeah, we should mention, I skipped over it really. Rainbow does shoot Andy fatally, doesn't he?
Yes.
But then he tries to shoot Charlie, who stops the bullet, and the bullet explodes. She just stops it like the Force. And then it explodes and he starts burning up. So that's kind of cool. And then all this mayhem happens with pirates. I really like this bit. This was the best bit of the film, really.
Oh, man. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
there,
she's just taking them out systematically. She's mad and she's just taking them out systematically.
Yeah, and I like how her dad tells her, too, like, hey, like, you got to destroy this place, basically, and get live, but make sure you destroy this place. It's like his dying wish almost.
Yeah, one of the themes throughout the film is he talks to her about sometimes you do a little bad thing rather than a big bad thing, if you haven't got a choice. So that's how he kind of puts it to her, and she kind of remembers that. And then somehow she gets back to the Manders farm, the old and then they take her. Or Art Carney's character takes her to the New York Times, right? Or
indeed,
the offices of the press in New York. And the film ends.
I think it's like Rolling Stone magazine in the book or something. I know it's different in the book a little bit anyway, but kind of a quick end there. But I am glad that they did show her like basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to tell this story and expose the government," and there's. I mean, who can really do anything about it now because they're all dead? So all the agents,
Yeah. So a reasonably punchy film. I felt it could have been shorter.
I feel the same way, yeah.
And the direction was okay. I feel like John Carpenter would have given us something way more exciting, a bit like he did with Christine.
That's sort of what I was thinking too. Like, man... Can you imagine what Carpenter would have done with this, Yeah. It would have been, given what he did with The Thing. But I still think it's a good film, even though it is... I think where it kind of drags is really when they get to the facility, the mansion. Like, all the chase stuff is really good. Yeah, exactly. It just slows down a little too much for my taste. But, I get why they did it, too, because they wanted... that kind of character development between Charlie and Rainbird, and of course you have some of the other agents, but the problem here, I think, Mark, is really just how you get the kind of internal monologues of the agents in the book compared to how you obviously you don't get that in a film like this.
No, you have to do it by showing, or something.
Exactly.
And I don't think that was the. It was still fine as is. It's just I think I'm not expecting that kind of nuance in a film. But I'm just saying in the book, there's a lot more nuance because it's a book, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Interesting premise. CIA up to no good, and everyone kind of knows about the CIA experiments that were happening in the 60s now, like MK Ultra and things like that. And in many ways, the sort of premises built into this film were precursors to something like the X-Files, right? Where government wasn't working in our favour. And I mean, before this, I guess there was Watergate and stuff, right? So people were much less trusting of their governments after Watergate, and this is kind of a precipitate of that, I guess. Particularly the shady stuff the CIA were always getting up to as well.
Exactly.
So it's got some nice effects. I quite like, in particular, I'm staying out for me with Sean C. Scott's performance. What about you? What acting? Who do you think stood out?
I have to agree with you on George C. Scott. I mean, he kind of steals the show in a whole lot of scenes, especially as he kind of acts as John, and gets Drew Barrymore to trust him. It's rather disturbing to just kind of see how a child's innocence can sort of be exploited by someone who kind of knows how to do that. It's rather a little uncomfortable to watch, to say the least. I'll just say that. But he does a very good job with it.
Yeah, I kind of liked how Martin Sheen got all excited when he started getting results from Charlie's experiments and saying, "Did you see that?"
Oh yeah,
Till we get all the recordings, he kind of, and even at one point, Brainbird's like, "Yeah, your Firestarter's just walked out the room while you were getting."
That was funny.
And he goes, "Who's gonna go get her? Go on!" And no one is gonna go up and go and get her because they're all scared of her. But she just goes back to her room anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. So I don't think it was a great film, but it was okay. I mean, I'd put it. I mean, there's some top tier King, isn't there? There's quite a few films of top tier King, over the years. Some I've already mentioned, but there's also stuff like, I don't know, The Mist. Gerald's Game's pretty top tier. The Dead Zone in particular, I think, is about the closest to this in terms of being the year it was made, but it's David Cronenberg directed that, and it's a much more effective film. Though it is an odd story, always been an odd story, Dead Zone, because it is a story of two halves. First half is about chasing a killer using his psychic powers. Second half is trying to stop a man who might destroy the world, who's got ambitions to be president. So it's a story of two halves. But it's a really... I mean, I did like their set, the locations. Apparently that house was found while scouting, and De Laurentiis offered to buy it from the people and then explained, "Oh no, we're going to blow it up." And they said, nah, you're not buying our house to blow it up. But you can. They gave them permission to film, and apparently a lot of productions have filmed around it since, because it is a cool place. Cool place, yeah. This film hasn't done very well on Rotten Tomatoes and things like that. 38%. From 34 critics' reviews. Average 5 out of 10.
That was a little low.
Yeah, I think.
What do you think?
5 out of 10's not too far away from where I'd put it. I'd put it a little higher than that, I've got to say.
Yeah, me too. But I enjoyed it for what it was. I agree with you, though. It's not like top tier King.
No.
I think I enjoy something personally like Salem's Lot a whole lot more. Granted, Salem's Lot, you have a lot more time to develop since it was like
Salem's Lot is terrific. I have to say, when you get into the lower end King, I much prefer the skeevier ones. I like what is it? The Night Flyer, things like that. Graveyard Shift.
Yeah.
The real sweaty, skeevy ones. Even the Mangler makes me laugh a lot.
I like the Mangler. Yeah, it's fun.
But this one, it needed to be punchier, I think, to be better.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's kind of weird they managed to get like George C. Scott on. I was quite surprised because it is a fairly exploitation kind of film, and that's not his usual wheelhouse, is it? But I really liked his turn.
Yeah.
There's some complaints in some of the reviews he was just chewing the scenery, but I don't care. It's George C. Scott, right?
That's kind of how I feel. It's like, you know what? Whatever he's in, I'm going to watch. It doesn't matter what it is. Because he really does just steal the screen, so to speak. And, he doesn't even do it intentionally. He's just that good, I
have to say that watching this did give me a taste for watching some more King from the 80s. I mean, I used to do the podcast Kingology.
Kingology,
right? And
yes.
I do keep meaning to restart that, but I haven't. But I spent a lot of time watching a lot of these movies and enjoying it. I'm trying to remember what it's the one that's based on his short stories from Night Shift. What's it called? There's a oh man, I'm totally blanking on the. It's a bit like Creepshow, but it isn't Creepshow. You don't know what I mean,
I'm
right?
trying to find it. I do, but I'm talking about Graveyard Shift, right?
No. There's a film with several short stories in that's a bit like Creepshow.
Okay.
I mean, he was involved in Creepshow, but it isn't Creepshow.
Yeah, obviously, right.
Maybe I'm
yeah, I know what you're talking about, but
yeah, all right, doesn't matter.
But yeah, we'll edit it.
Yeah, what I need to do is have a Stephen King films. Then they'll know what I'm talking about. Film.
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to do more Stephen King on UNH. I mean, we've done a little bit over the years, of course, with Pennywise and several other properties of King. We've covered The Mist. I know we have covered The Mangler. We kind of always try to cover fairly. Not even obscure, but titles that maybe don't get enough love sometimes. But I would love to do more Stephen King. I've also heard the Dead Zone series is very good.
It's
as well
interesting.
As, the film.
I've seen a couple, and they're kind of interesting. I really like the film.
Yeah.
You know what I was trying to think of? I've just realised it was. Creepshow Part 2 is what I was thinking of. I was confusing it. Because in Creepshow Part 2, there's some more of King short stories are used in that movie. But I even like, Maximum Overdrive. That is awesome. And
that's
looking at the list, there's of course, some of his other classics are Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me, Misery, right? Green Mile.
Oh man, Misery.
And if you want to go slightly lower tier, but still a lot of fun, Pet Sematary. Of course.
Oh, I love the original Pet Sematary.
The marvellous It, of course. All versions of it is fine. Christine.
Indeed.
Children of the Corn. We got so much to choose from, really.
Yeah, I want to say we did cover one of the Children of the Corn films at one point here on UNH, but I know there's so many versions of it now.
Yeah,
so
well, there was another one made in when we did the 2022 recording. There was a Children of the Corn, but it was horrible. It wasn't good at all. But there's some real fun one. Silver Bullet is amazing fun. For example,
that's been on my list for ages.
And if you want to go
check out
a little more serious, but not top tier, something like The Dark Half, right? And if you want to go completely bonkers, The Lawnmower Man, which Stephen isn't really based on anything Stephen King wrote, and he's disowned it. They just used his name, but it's a totally bonkers film.
It's nuts. I like it though. I like that one.
All right. Well, to get back to Firestarter, what would you rate it? And what have you got any final thoughts? We'll get to feedback, but have you got any final thoughts about it all?
I do agree. It could stand to be a little more punchy. That being said, though, for what it is, I enjoyed it. there's no way it's gonna stack up to the book. I mean, it's been ages since I read the book, like junior high, high school kind of ages for me, and I still have fond memories of the book. So to see this movie version of it now, I enjoyed it. You know, I think I would probably give it I'm gonna say 7 out of 10 if reasonable.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and that's very fair.
Yeah,
I think 6 out of 10 is good too.
It's a low 6, but I still think it's just about hitting a 6. I wasn't bored. I just felt this film would be better if it was punchier. It's more rather than I'm a bit bored watching this. It wasn't that at all. So yeah, it's an okay-ish. It's not bottom of the barrel Stephen King, but it's. But I have to say I can't think of a single Stephen King property I didn't like, apart from some of these terrible remakes, recent remakes. I don't particularly like the remake of Pet Sematary. Don't particularly like the remake of this. But from all the 80s stuff is gold, man. Any one of them is fine to watch. I
mean, it's really the 80s had just so much great horror as far as horror films in particular. I mean, it's amazing because there's just so much to watch. There's so much that I haven't seen yet that I want to get to just from the 80s, so I really love that decade, and it's no wonder that we kind of harken back to those times, particularly for horror films.
There's so much good horror in the 80s. You could definitely just do an 80s horror podcast and do it for years.
Yeah.
There is so much. Right, we did get some feedback. I did it fairly shortly before, only a couple of days ago rather than a week ago. So we got one piece of feedback from Bruce Hannon. Hi, Bruce. How are you, Bruce? Always welcome to hear from Bruce.
Indeed.
And what he said was, I have to say, when I first posted, he did post a picture of the beginning credits or the DVD, whatever it was, showing he was just about to start watching Firestarter on his TV, which is kind of
cool. Nice.
Anyway, to get to his feedback, he says, so I watched Firestarter last night for the first time in over 20 years. In the most part, I thought it was pretty solid, although it could have been 15 minutes shorter, which kind of tallies with what we were saying.
Indeed. Yeah.
I like the concept of the movie, and I thought Drew Barrymore and David Keith were really believable as loving father and daughter. Yeah, I agree.
They did really good.
David Keith really sold that. Jules C. Scott was also great as the main villain with absolutely no morals at all, while his ponytail did seem a bit misplaced in the role.
That's awesome. And I would agree. It's
it's a bit much. And then he carries on. And talking about hair, when Charlie was doing her thing and her golden locks started blowing like a 1984 Timotei shampoo ad. But it looks a little strange in her earlier scenes, but it does work well when she gets a rage on at the end. It definitely does. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the last 10 minutes, especially the fireball killing spree.
Oh my god, it's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's the best bit of the film. That 10 minutes is really solid, where she goes, well, basically from Rainbird's death until quite close, till she gets to the farmhouse, is a very solid sort of fun part.
Absolutely, man.
The climax, and he goes on, the climax of the movie was pretty sad. I so wish they replaced our hopes of security in the form of a newspaper company with Professor Charles Xavier arriving at the farm, taking Charlie's hand while saying, "You're safe now." There is, in one of the X-Men films, there's definitely a part like this, isn't there, where fireballs start kicking off left, right, center. I can't remember which one, but it's in one of the. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I know there is too, because I think I've seen them all now. Some better than others, right?
I really like First. I like the first and second one and First Class, and the other one that was with First Class's name I can never remember. Same crew. It was straight. Days of Future Past. That one, I think that was a really good one.
Oh yeah, that one was cool. Yeah.
Just one last thing. I really like Tangerine Dream, who did the soundtrack. I just wonder how well it works in this movie. I think an orchestral score might have been better. No, I think the soundtrack's pretty good, personally.
I love it, but I mean, I love that '80s synthwave kind of vibe, So I don't know, man. I just every time a film has that kind of music, I kind of get excited. I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
perfect.
I mean, Tangerine Dream, pretty solid. I mean, they did a really bizarro, really good soundtrack to the film The Keep, which was a mad film involving monsters and Nazis. But they did
that sounds fun.
Quite interesting soundtrack for that. Let's see, where else? Oh, he says, I included a picture of my Stephen King movie collection. Now he's basically got a wall of DVDs, and I'm just going to count it, right? And it's 8 across by 7 down, so that's 56 movies he's got showing, including, it and things like that.
That's beautiful.
I think The Running Man's there. Can't see it for it, but I'm sure he would have included The Running Man. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go see it, come to our Facebook group, which is Facebook UN of Horror. Just search for UN of Horror.
Yeah.
If you're not already on it, you'll see it there.
Yeah. So he said, "I always welcome."
Yeah, we definitely do. So he says, I included a picture of my Stephen King movie collection. I don't want to take over the whole episode talking about how much I love Stephen King movies or TV miniseries, so I will keep it brief. Like most people, I think Stand By Me, The Shawshank Redemption, and The Green Mile are pretty much his best adaptations. A little bit more obscure, I love Thinner, The Dark Half, and Graveyard Shift. That 90s period when I was collecting X-Rental VHS from actual video stores bring back happy memories. Yeah, I mean, King's 80s and 90s King is really still. It's really only more recently that I've had some not so good adaptation. Having said that, I like the recent Dark Tower. I know it has no bearing on the book whatsoever, but the nature of the Dark Tower is history's circular, so it could be just another time stream Roland was in, and I think Idris Elba was really good as Roland. And Matthew McConaughey was good as whatever variant we're dealing with, Randall Flagg or whatever it is. So yeah. So thanks, Bruce. That was really cool.
Thanks so much. Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, Stephen King is really he's a genre unto himself for horror films, isn't he?
And books, of course.
Yeah. I remember, back in the 90s, they had like, I think it may have been the late 80s, but anyway, they had like 1-800 numbers you could call, and they would start sending you like Stephen King books, just one after the other. It's like the Stephen King collection. That's how big this guy is and how much horror he's contributed over the years. And I mean, he's awesome. One of the most creative guys.
As influential, or probably even more influential in terms of horror media writing and films, as H.P. Lovecraft was in his day. In his time, H.P. Lovecraft was. There's a lot of influence running from H.P. Lovecraft, and it's still going on. And King is probably even more so. And we're getting it in a lot of shows where they're basically redoing the 80s. Stranger Things being the sort of leader of that. But I think, for example, the recent Maxine, I haven't seen it, I suspect that'll start, because it's set early 80s, late 70s, it might have got a King-like vibe to it, but we'll see. I haven't seen it yet, and I don't, I'm avoiding spoilers, so I don't know, but I suspect there'll be a King vibe. Pretty much any time we see any 80s stuff, there's a King vibe. Like, I already talked about Stranger Things, but there was that other show, series of films, wasn't it? Fear Street. I know that was R.L. Stine, but even so, it felt like Stephen King.
It did feel, very much so like a Stephen King.
Yeah. So I don't.
Cool stuff, man.
I wouldn't be too surprised, dear listeners, if you find us doing a bit more King in the near future. To be honest,
I wouldn't either, Mark. I could always, I need more Stephen King in my life, to be honest with you.
Yes.
We all need more King in our life.
I used to be a massive Stephen King reader, but now I'm not a bigger reader as I used to be. but I used to read one a month, and podcast about it. So I was a very I went through maybe the first 35 books that way. I'm still aiming to continue.
And your Kingology podcast is wonderful. For anyone who has not listened, be sure to look it up. Kingology.
Yes, Kingology. If you just Google Kingology, you'll find the podcast. And we got up to past it. That's how far we got into the chronology. But I kind of slowed up after that. I had too many other things. I kind of started other types of sub-podcasts, and that's kind of led to that. Anyway.
Yeah, one always
back to the UNH. Back to the UNH. I think we're about done on Firestarter. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, man. It's great. I would, like I say, not the best King film, but it was really fun. I enjoyed it, and I kind of want to check out. I mean, I know the new film's not great apparently, but I kind of do want to check it out, or at least maybe the sci-fi miniseries to see how that did. So, and just other King in general. But as you say, Mark, it would be fun to do more King. So we'll have a talk about it and probably do more in the future. And I'm sure our listeners, if you guys have any input on maybe what you'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know. What's your favorite King?
Yeah, maybe we'll come up with a list of 5 or something between us, and then we'll put it out as a poll, and then the Facebook group can decide which one we cover next.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
I don't mind doing that, something like that. We'll have a think and decide what to do once this is out.
Sounds
okay.
Good. All right.
Would you like to lead us out?
Yeah, lead us out. So thanks everyone for listening. You can find us on unhpodcast.com, as well as you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on pretty much every podcasting network. We're not too hard to find. Mark, thank you so much, man. As always, it's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward.
Yeah, always is.
Looking forward to talking more King with you, man. You're just an encyclopedia of wonderful movie knowledge, but in particular, I know your knowledge of King is very, very strong with the Force. So
yeah,
so it's going to be fun. So bye from me.
And bye from me.
And we'll see you next time, right here on the United Nations of Horror. I'm the fear addicted, danger illustrated. I'm a Firestarter, twisted Firestarter. You're the Firestarter, twisted Firestarter.
The United Nations of Horror is a podcast about all things horror. From thrillers of yesteryear to today's modern horror, we are here to present fun and intelligent conversation about the genre films we love. Join us and please help spread the word about the United Nations of Horror podcast and videocast to horror fans across the globe. Find the podcast on all fine podcasting services. Join us on Facebook by simply going to facebook.com and entering in United Nations of Horror. You can also find us on YouTube by going to youtube.com and searching for United Nations of Horror podcast.